All right, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's virtual field trip. Just a quick introduction for everyone. If this is your first experience on a Learn Around the World virtual field trip, this is an interactive experience, and you can do that in one of several ways. You can send in your questions to the Q&A app that's built right into your Zoom window that you're watching in right now. You can also feel free to use the hashtag GEOshow over on Twitter. And make sure you use the hashtag. That's the only thing I'm following on Twitter. And log into Kahoot. We highly recommend that you participate using Kahoot. Today's Kahoot pin is 339-2096. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with today's virtual field trip. Again, remember that you can use Twitter and follow along on the show. And if you play along with Kahoot, make sure you pay attention, because at the end of the show, we'll have a quiz worth points. And if you win today's quiz, you'll win a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World studio. Also, if you stump me on any questions, great. You're asking fantastic questions, and I want to make sure I give you an accurate answer. So if I need to do further research, I will do that research and post up those answers to flipgrid.com/GeoShow later on today and tomorrow. All right, so it's that time of the day, so we're going ahead and starting with our virtual field trip. But first, I want to know, explorers, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it, guys. GeoShow is now
You're
live.
blocking everybody else. Get your bottom on the floor.
All right. Welcome all explorers. You're now watching the GeoShow, and the title of today's virtual field trip is Komodo National Park, brought to you by Learn Around the World, bringing you guest speakers of virtual field trips just like this one from all around the globe. We're kicking off today's show with a survey question using Kahoot. So a couple reminders that game pin is right there, so you can go ahead and get logged in. And also, the way we use Kahoot here on the GeoShow is you only get 10 seconds to answer your question, so not a lot of time. So you need to pay attention. Also, the questions will be up on the screen where you see me right now. So if you're playing along with devices, don't look right down at your devices. You're only going to see the color buttons to answer the question with. So how does that work? Well, let's go ahead and practice with today's first survey question. Again, the survey questions are not worth points, so if you're not logged in yet, don't worry, but the show must go on. So we're going to go ahead and launch that first survey question today. We're going to Komodo National Park today on our virtual field trip, but where is Komodo National Park? What country is it located in? Is it in red Indonesia, blue Thailand, yellow Cambodia, or green Australia? All right, it is located in red Indonesia. So if you chose red, you are correct. Again, there's that game pin. Go ahead and get logged in so you don't miss out once we start our quiz questions later on in the show. But let's look at it closer. Where is Indonesia? Well, if you don't know exactly where it is, let's spin our planet around, because it's on the other side of the world if you're watching from the US. As we zoom in a little bit closer, I'm going to freeze it right here, because let's point out some things about the country of Indonesia. First off, Indonesia is made up of around 17,000 islands located in this area right here. So that's a lot. You did not mishear me, explorers. Over 17,000 islands make up the country of Indonesia. Now, most of them are really small islands, but as you can see, it's a very, very large area that the country is located in. Also, a couple other fun facts about those 17,000 islands. The people that live on those islands speak around 700 active languages. That's a lot of languages to learn in Indonesia. It's also the fourth largest country in the world as far as population. They only fall behind China, India, and the USA. And they are the largest Islamic country in the world. So not a lot of people know that, but they are. And as we zoom in a little bit closer, then we're going to talk about the exact location that Komodo National Park is located in. It's located in the Flores Sea. So as we get a little bit closer into the Flores Sea, these 5 islands right here make up the majority of Komodo National Park. And we are going to visit 2 of those islands today. So we're going to visit the 2 largest islands. The first one is this one right here. This is Rinca Island. And there are somewhere around 2,500 or so Komodo dragons that live on this island. And the same for Komodo Island, around 2 to 2,500. And if we look at Komodo Island, so we're going to hike around right here where the ranger stations are located. We'll talk about why ranger stations are a good place to go see Komodo dragons when we start looking at them as well. The other island that we're going to visit in Komodo National Park is what the Komodo National Park gets its name from, and that is the island of Komodo. So Komodo Island, we also are going to visit today, and we're going to look at the Komodo dragons located on this island. Now, I will say they typically get a little bit larger, and I'm showing these dots, and these are where we actually got off to walk onto the island because there are no airports on these small islands. So the only way to get there is by boat. So you do fly into a nearby island called Flores Island, and then you take a boat over here. And again, we'll hike around some ranger stations here at Komodo Island to see if we can find some Komodo dragons. And I actually stayed the night on this expedition, anchored right off the water right here is where I spent the nights on our expedition that you guys are virtually going to attend now. But before we start on today's virtual field trip, we do want to introduce our on-camera guest classrooms. Now, I only have one with us today. We had 2 other spots, but they are from Connecticut and Delaware. That is getting slammed by a nor'easter right now, I can tell you, because we're located in Maine and I can see it out the window now. So I imagine those schools are out for the day. So if you requested an on-camera spot and you did not receive one, I will take the first 2 people that let me know in the chat box. Let me know if you want to be on camera. Again, this is a publicly viewed broadcast, so make sure you have parent permissions before I'll let you on there. But first up, we have Mrs. Harrington's 5th graders from Newcastle, Delaware. Welcome to the show, guys. All right, and I misspoke. It looks like you guys are in school. And does anyone in your classroom have a fun fact about Komodo dragons you would like to share, or the Indonesia, or anything?
Sorry. Natasha? Oh, go ahead.
A Komodo dragon is poisonous.
Okay, so Komodo dragons, and we're going to go ahead and point this out. So there's a difference between poisonous and venomous. Okay, so there's no such thing as a poisonous snake. There's no such thing as a poisonous Komodo dragon. They are venomous. Can you guys say venomous?
Venomous.
All right, so I'll talk about this later on in the show, but the difference between the two, typically in English anyways, we separate. I know not all languages separate them, but in English anyways, the 2 words are separated. And so in both cases, they are toxins that are typically dangerous to humans or animals or whatever it is affecting, whatever organism. But venom is when something bites you and injects those toxins into you. So this would be like a snake bite or a Komodo dragon bite or a bee sting, for example. These are examples of venom, whereas poison is something you consume, like a poisonous mushroom, or if you get it on your skin and it goes through your skin, like poison ivy or a poison dart frog. So those are the scientific differences between poison and venom, but they are venomous, and not a lot of people know that because it's kind of a myth that they kill their prey with bacteria in their mouth, which I learned when I was a kid. So great fun fact there. And if you're requesting to go on, I'll let you guys on in a minute. I do want to give a couple of shout outs. We give shout outs randomly, of course, on here in the show. Lots of classrooms watching. Our first one today is going out to Parkview Prep out in California. And we'll give another one, why not, to Richmond Hill Elementary in Georgia. So welcome to everyone watching the show. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, just a reminder, if you're not on camera with us today, you can use that Q&A app in your Zoom window and hashtag GEOshow to text in your questions. This is an interactive show, but we're going to go ahead and get started with our virtual expedition to Komodo National Park. All right, so we're starting off on our boats. Okay, remember you have to take a boat to get to Komodo National Park. And as we see right here, so first off, we're going to look at, we see the sign that says this is a crocodile area. So there are other dangerous organisms that do live in the area, and one of those being the crocodile. Now, Komodo dragons are the largest lizards in the world, not the largest reptiles in the world. Crocodiles are also reptiles, and they are larger. There's also two other dangerous reptiles on the island, two snakes, and they are venomous, not poisonous snakes. And so there's a type of cobra and viper on the island as well. But one of the first things you do when you come to Komodo National Park, so once you dock your boat, in our case, we had to jump on another boat to even make it onto the dock. The first thing you do is you start walking and you walk over to the ranger station guided by a ranger. So they meet you right at the boat. And the reason is because right off the bat, there are no fences. There's no protective barriers here. And right off the get-go, we see Komodo dragons, guys. And so we often see them as we sign in here. Let's go back in just really quickly. Once you often see them just kind of laying around. So one of the surprising things that I learned through this expedition is often, you see these amazing animals like on the Animal Planet TV channel or Discovery Channel, and we often see them while they're attacking their prey. But most often when the ones that I had noticed that were around the ranger stations and in the wild, a lot of them were just laying around inactive. And that's because of the things that I learned about Komodo dragons. And one of them being is they only eat once a month. They eat very large meals at a time. And if they eat a very large meal, they can eat up to 80% of their body weight in one meal. So that could be hundreds of pounds of food. So if they eat that much food at one time, they have a very slow metabolism and they don't need to eat again for a month. And so what they're doing is they're laying around regulating their body temperature because they are cold-blooded animals. They are reptiles. And in this case, they're in a hot tropical environment. So they are sitting in the shade with their bellies on the cool ground. All right, so we're going to go in and sign in. They want to make sure they know who enters the park so they know that they leave the park. And like any other national park located around the world, park rangers are there to protect us. They're there to protect the animals. They're there to protect the plants and the park, but they're also there for education. And so there's lots of information we can learn here. And this is a great display, and this is displaying some of the animals that the Komodo dragon preys upon. So they are meat eaters, so they are carnivores, so they don't eat plants. They're also scavengers, so that means they eat carrion, they eat dead things that are found on the ground or that washes up from the ocean. Here we get to see water buffalo skulls, some monkey skulls, and their favorite food here on the island is right here. Deer is like, this is like the number one food option for the Komodo dragon, at least for the larger ones. So there's lots of information that we can get as we're walking around before we even see Komodo dragons. And right here on the ground, let's ask our classroom, Mrs. Harrington's classroom, do you guys have any guesses of what this stuff smeared on the ground is?
It's 6 weeks into the semester.
Right. Poop, for lack of better words, or scat, or Komodo dragon droppings. And so what this is poop. So we can discover a lot of information about Komodo dragons and their diets from their poop. So let's start looking at some different types of poop here. So right here, we have some stuff that came out of the Komodo dragon. Now, Komodo dragons swallow their prey whole. Everything, hair, bones, all of that stuff. So unlike a lion that's going to like pick off the meat from the bones, Komodo dragons, once they tear off a leg of a deer or anything like that, they're swallowing the entire animal. But they don't digest the hair. So the hair comes out and the hooves come out and the bones come out. Everything else gets digested. So when we compare these predators to another top predator, like the lion is a great example, right? Lions only consume around 70 to 75% of their prey. Their teeth are big and sharp. It's made for ripping meat off of bones, but they can't get every little piece of meat. Whereas Komodo dragons, because they swallow everything whole, every bit of that animal is consumed. So they consume up to around 88% of the animals that they eat, everything but the hair and the hooves and the bones. Speaking of which, does anyone have a guess of what this stuff is right here?
Eggs.
Okay. Well, it's not eggs. It came out of the poop again. So do we have any? So this would be part of their prey, part of something they ate.
Hear us. And see us.
I forgot that. You good?
All right. So I'll give you a hint. So it's white, and it's made of calcium.
Can never do this again. White and made of calcium?
Cow.
No. Nope.
Them bones. Okay, so these are animal bones, and so this is from a deer. So the bones get crushed up once they chew the meat and they swallow it whole. Those bones are getting crushed up and into their digestive system. So it comes out in this powdery format when it comes out into the poop. All right, so let's start walking around and see if we can find some actual Komodo dragons as we are walking around. And keep your eyes out because we might see some. Do you guys see any Komodo dragons yet?
Yeah.
All right, so what do you guys think? We have a Komodo dragon that's walking towards us. Should we run?
No, because then they're going to chase them.
Okay, so some people are saying, no, they might chase us. So right, so Komodo dragons, well, first off, if you run, you may cause them to attack you. So you don't want to run. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I wanted to run. So as this Komodo dragon was walking directly towards us, my heart was going do, 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 do. And the guy told us not to run. And one of the reasons is you're not going to outrun a Komodo dragon. Komodo dragons can run up to 20 kilometers per hour. That's about 13 miles per hour. That's faster than you can run. So you're not going to outrun them. But when this Komodo dragon did get a little bit too close, our guide started going. Can everyone make that sound? All right, so we have some angry Komodo dragon sounds, and I'll let you listen to a Komodo dragon making that sound. But what that sound does, it's a warning sign. Komodo dragons are, they live their lives alone, meaning they don't live in groups. They don't hunt in groups. They do eat in groups because once something is killed, they come from all over the place to eat into that prey. And but they don't like, if another Komodo dragon gets too close to them, they'll give that warning sign. So our guide gave this Komodo dragon that warning sign. And as soon as he gave him that warning sign, that Komodo dragon stopped, lifted up his head, thought about it for a minute, and then started walking around us. Okay. And this is again, the largest lizard in the world. These things, we talked a little bit about their different types of prey, and they have and do from time to time eat people. So they can eat people. So it's okay to be scared of these things because it can be quite deadly if they do bite you or attack you. So we'll talk a bit later about how you can stay protected. But as we see this Komodo dragon sitting up on its back right here, it's not really a dragon. So there are no wings on this animal, and it doesn't breathe fire. But surely if any animal does look like a dragon, it is this one, and that's why it has that nickname of a Komodo dragon. Now, I just want to point out something right here because this is a great place to talk about it as we look at this one coming right towards us. But everyone look at its tongue. And our new classroom joining us, Mrs. Flynn's classroom, do you guys have a guess? What's he doing with his tongue?
What do you think he's doing with his tongue?
He's probably like
Right, they are smelling. So look at him stick that forked tongue out. So if you guys can see it, it's a forked tongue. And let's see, it's hard to get, kind of get it right. Kind of get it coming out there. Well, I'll kind of draw over it for you guys. But Komodo dragons have a forked tongue. So when they stick that forked tongue out of their mouths, it works very much like a snake. And snakes are using that forked tongue to smell the air. Okay, so we have little molecules floating around of smell in the air. Okay, this happens all the time. We smell it with our nose. But when we have animals like many reptiles, many lizards and snakes, they use a forked tongue, and they use something in their mouth. It's called the Jacobson's organ. Can you guys say Jacobson's organ?
Jacobson's organ.
All right, so what's happening with the Jacobson's organ is you're sticking your tongue out in the air. Molecules are sticking to your tongue, and when you bring it back in your mouth, the Jacobson's organ is located in the roof of the mouth. And what it does is it reads those smells, and then it tells the brain which direction that smell is coming from. If you have a forked tongue, you have molecules that are sticking to the insides of the tongue. They know it's coming from that way. In fact, this type of smell is so good that they can smell smells up to 2.5 miles away if the wind is going in the proper place for them. So it's very good. They do have nostrils, but their Jacobson's organ works way better than their nose. So they actually rely on the Jacobson's organ more than what they can smell with their nostrils. All right, so when we go back and look at them, we're going to head over to Komodo Island now, because the Komodo dragons over on Komodo Island, they actually get larger than they do on Rinka Island. And one of the reasons they get larger than they do on Rinka Island is because they're not competing with humans. So there are human communities that live on Rinka Island, and these are typically fishing communities. But over here on Komodo Island, abracadabra, aren't virtual field trips cool? You guys just missed that couple-hour boat ride to get over here. Well, over here, they get a lot larger. So as we watch this one walking by, they can get up to 10 feet long. And on average in the wild, they get up to about 250 pounds. But the largest documented Komodo dragon was actually 360 pounds. So they can get up to 300 pounds, as we see this one walking by. So they have a more healthy diet of deer, water buffalo, and wild boar over here on Komodo Island. So they can get larger over here, and they do, as we see this large dragon coming up on us. Now I'm going to turn the volume up. I want everyone to listen. You have to be quiet in class. Now listen to the speakers really carefully. And this Komodo dragon that's laying on the ground, remember that warning sign I had you guys make earlier? Well, let's listen to what it sounds like when an actual Komodo dragon makes that sound.
So slow, but for sure.
All right. Did you guys hear that? Yeah. So that one on the ground right there is saying, "Hey, buddy, you need to back off. You are in my space." And so Komodo dragons typically they stay out of each other's space. What happens when you can't stay out of each other's space typically is when they're eating a meal, or if it's mating season. And in those two scenarios, they will fight each other when that happens. Now, we talked about them being venomous. Their venom does not affect each other. So if a Komodo dragon bites another Komodo dragon, the venom does not affect it. None of the bacteria that they have in their mouths affect it as well. Now, as we see them laying here, again, they're laying on that cool ground. See how their body kind of flattens out? They get really wide when they lay down. They look kind of funny when they're just laying around. And I said earlier that, ranger stations are a great place to come see them. That's because rangers, they need to eat just like we do. And so when they cook food in these buildings, Komodo dragons come from all around. And as you see me walking by, I'll tell you about those sticks in a minute and what they're used for. But you can see a Komodo dragon right here behind me as I'm walking away. Those two Komodo dragons that we just saw on the ground were right there. The one we saw walking by went that way. There are Komodo dragons behind here, even off of camera that way. They're everywhere around here. So again, there's around 5,000 or so Komodo dragons in Komodo National Park, and there's about 2,000 or so on both Rinka and Komodo Island, the two largest of the islands. All right, and just to show you, we are going to open up for questions here shortly. So make sure you're texting in your questions to either hashtag GEOshow or using the Q&A app. Just to show you a couple of things, this is from Rinka Island. So this is a small fishing village that is on the edge of the island. There's a mosque up here. So remember, I said this is the largest Islamic country in the world. And many of the homes, just like the ranger stations that we saw there, are built on stilts. So this helps as they're cooking and Komodo dragons come from the island. You may have 10 Komodo dragons sitting below your window when you're cooking your meal in your home. So it's nice to have your home up on stilts, so Komodo dragons don't just walk into your house. That wouldn't be cool, right? And remember, there's over 17,000 islands in Indonesia. Most of them are small like this. Komodo dragons can island hop. They are fantastic swimmers. They don't spend a whole lot of time in the water. They are land animals, but when they do need to swim, they are great swimmers. And again, you have to take a boat to get out to these islands. This is a great shot. I love this because it gives you a better idea of what the environment is like. So the type of habitat that this is a tropical savanna, and so that means there's a hot. Well, both seasons are hot, but there's a dry season and then there's a wet season. So it's like 2 summers. You have a hot summer, or sorry, a dry summer and a wet summer, basically, and it's a savanna environment, so it means it's mostly grass and bushes, but there are some forested areas. So some of the lower lying areas that some of the water will drain to, then they can support some forest, but the entire islands are not covered with forest. And this is a pretty unique thing about Komodo dragons that I did not know before coming here, and that is Komodo dragons. Well, let me ask you guys a question first. Let's go over to Mrs. Harrington's classroom. Do you guys think Komodo dragons lay eggs or give live birth?
What do you think?
Lay
eggs. Lay eggs.
Live
birth.
So
We're excited.
All right, so I heard a lot of lay eggs. So they do lay eggs because they are the largest lizard in the world, and lizards are reptiles. Reptiles lay eggs. So they lay eggs, but when their legs hatch, when their eggs hatch, the hatchlings, so I'm gonna use my super awesome drawing skills for you guys. I know you're jealous. All right, so when a little baby Komodo dragon hatches, they're about 16 inches long. And the first thing that they do is they scurry up a tree. And they actually live the first couple of years of their lives living in trees. And as young baby Komodo dragons, they are feeding off of insects like grasshoppers, beetles. They are eating off of small birds if they can catch them, or eggs, or small lizards like geckos, or even smaller Komodo dragons. That's right, they even eat Komodo dragons. So that's one of the reasons why they run up into a tree. It's because large Komodo dragons will eat baby Komodo dragons, or any Komodo dragon that is going to be an easy meal. So they need to run up in the tree, and that keeps them away, because those 300-pound Komodo dragons, the big ones walking around down here, they are just too big to climb trees. Although my big Komodo dragon looks like a beetle there. All right, that brings us to our next survey question of the day, and that is going to be, how many eyes do Komodo dragons have? How many eyes do they have? I want you guys to tell me over on Kahoots, how many eyes do you think Komodo dragons have? Again, that game pin today is 339-2096. How many eyes do Komodo dragons have? All right, so most people are saying 2, but here's the crazy thing, guys. If you said red 3, virtual high five to you, boom, boom. They actually have 3 eyes. Say what? That's right, they have 3 eyes. Now, only 2 of those are fully developed eyes. So they have 2 fully developed eyes, and then they have a 3rd eye on their forehead that's an underdeveloped eye. They can only really see shadows with that 3rd eye. So they're not going to see a whole lot with that 3rd eye. But what do they see with their 2 fully developed eyes? Well, they have very good eyesight. They can see about 300 meters, and they are what we call diurnal animals. Can you guys say diurnal? Diurnal. Okay, and let me ask Mrs. Flynn's class. Diurnal is opposite of nocturnal. So what does diurnal mean? What do you guys think?
What does it mean? They sleep during the night and walk around in the morning.
Yeah, right. So when we talk about when animals are what time of day, we use the term in science most active, because you can be awake at nighttime. We're diurnal and we stay up playing video games, right? But we're really diurnal animals. Same thing with an owl. That's a nocturnal animal. They can be awake during the day, but they're most active. They're out hunting at nighttime. So Komodo dragons are out hunting in the daytime. And here's just a bonus vocabulary word for you guys. Does anyone know what you call animals that are most active at dawn and dusk? So the in-between times?
nocturnal would be at night. Anybody know dawn and dusk?
It's called crepuscular. Can you guys say crepuscular? All right, so crepuscular animals are animals that are most active at dawn and dusk. Mosquitoes, beavers, sharks, crepuscular. All right, so let's go ahead back and look at that Komodo dragon. When we start talking about their eyes and other adaptations of Komodo dragons, so adaptations, that's just a big fancy science word that basically means the tools that animals use to live in their environment. So it can be like a bird has wings. That's the tool that helps them fly, right? So these diurnal eyes are eyes that help them see during the daytime. So that means they have lots of cones in their eyes. They can see lots of color, but they can't really see well in dim light. They do have nostrils, but again, that Jacobson's organ is a lot better adaptation for smelling, so they rely on their tongue and the Jacobson's organ more than their nostrils. They are lizards, so they have scales. They have big old thick scales that protect them, and they also have we can't see in his mouth right now, but I'll show you his teeth in a second. And but they do have venom, so they have venom in their mouths, and they do have bacteria. They can have up to 50 different strands of bacteria in the mouth. Some of it's deadly strands of bacteria, but more recent research in the last few years, we now know that it's the venom that does most of the work, not the bacteria in their mouths. They do have claws. They're great for digging. So when they're younger, it helps them climb. The older, heavier Komodo dragons, they're using it for digging. They dig burrows, kind of just a little bit bigger than they are, that they'll kind of squeeze into. And they'll also use those to clutch on to small prey as well. Speaking of prey, I just mentioned their teeth. So they don't have very large teeth. They're actually kind of small, but they're really sharp. They're really good for slashing their prey. So they're kind of jagging on the edge. It's kind of hard to see because it's so small, but I'll just draw some big squiggly lines, kind of like a steak knife. So they're jagged on the edge. And I'll show you what that looks like right here. And so I do have a Komodo dragon tooth that a ranger gave me that I was hiking around with on Komodo Island. And it's not very big, guys. So this is the size of my pinky fingernail. It's about as wide as my pinky fingernail. So it's really, really small. They have about 60 of these around their mouth. So what they're using these for is when they attack their prey, they ambush their prey. That means they lay in high bushes and grass, and when their prey walks by, they'll jump out and attack them. If it's a small prey, they'll kill them right then and there. If it's a large prey, like a water buffalo, something that can hurt them back, then they'll bite them, and then they'll back off and they'll follow them around. Some of the water buffalo, it can take days for them to die. And we now know it's most likely the venom, the effect that it has on larger animals is it stops their blood from clotting. You know how when you get a cut on your skin, eventually you scab up, and we call that clotting, and the bleeding will stop. Well, this venom makes it where you don't do that. So you'll just keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and the cuts will stay open. And this allows you, when the water buffalo, they go hang out in these nasty drinking water holes that has all this crazy bacteria in it, they end up getting blood poisoning from that bacteria. So it's a combination of two different things. It's kind of an interesting adaptation. All right, so when we go back and look at those Komodo dragons, again, some of those animals will fight back. So you see often they're scarring on their faces, typically of wild boar. And they only need to eat because they eat up to 80% of their body weight. So, to keep the math easy, if it's a 100-pound Komodo dragon, that means they can eat 80 pounds of food at one time, 80 pounds of meat. So this Komodo dragon, if it just ate 80 pounds of meat, it's not going to eat again for a whole month. So they're typically laying around. And as long as you don't get up there and touch them, you can get kind of close to them. The rangers are there off of camera to kind of tell us what is okay and not okay to do. Now, you would never get this close to one if they were feeding, because when they get into a feeding frenzy, that's when people get too close and end up getting bitten. And again, these ranger stations are great places to come see Komodo dragons. And just to show you, they are great swimmers. I went swimming right off of Komodo Island. You see me jumping off the boat, but you know, some people have told me they would or would not do that. So you know, we'll leave it up to you guys when you go there someday. And we'll end on a sunset off Komodo Island because sunsets are cool and they are quite beautiful in this part of the world. All right, so we're going to open up the floor for some questions. So go ahead, if you're on camera with us today, go ahead and get your question askers sent up to the screen. And I'm just seeing our other classroom that requested. I'll send you guys up. So we're getting a question from Mrs. Flynn's classroom. They wanted to know, how long do Komodo dragons live for? How long do they live for? Well, typically they live for around 30 years in the wild. Now, I have found some information that says up to 50 years. Now, this is a great opportunity to talk about sources, right? So great reputable sources. One is the Canadian National Museum. They say up to 50 years. The Smithsonian National Museum in the US says up to 30 years. So there's kind of some not a lot of agreement of how long, but I found more sources for around 30 years. So, but maybe they could get up to 50. But I do know they don't reach full-size adults until they get around 8 or 9 years of age. Okay, so let's go over to Mrs. Flynn's classroom. Do you guys have a question for us on camera?
Grayson, go ahead.
How long have they been around for?
He just asked that.
Well, yeah, that was a lifespan. So how long has this animal been around on the planet? Well, I do know that their genus, so that means the most closely related relatives. A great example of this would be like dogs, for example. Dogs, coyotes, wolves are in the same genus. That's how we classify animals. And so other animals, other monitor lizards and genuses, they have been found up to 40 million years ago, skeletons. But I don't know when the Komodo dragon species started first appear. So it's definitely not going to be longer than 40 million years ago currently, unless we find more remains that pushes it further back. Great question. Let's go over to Mrs. Harrington's classroom. Do you guys have a question for us?
Go ahead, Alina.
How do they digest their food?
In their digestive systems. So I don't know exactly how that would relate to our digestive system. Like, for instance, if they have a large intestine, small intestine, and a stomach with acidic acid in there, I don't know the actual process of their digestive system. I just know that they swallow their prey whole, and in their digestive tract, they break down all the meats. Every bit that can be consumed, they eat. So they're highly efficient eaters. Okay, and let's say we do have another classroom that requested to join us. So let's go over. Where are you guys watching from, and what's your question?
We are in Shelby, North Carolina.
Woohoo!
Someone pick.
Me.
Yeah. Over here.
How many are there in the world?
All right, so the only answer, I'm a cheat because I can only give you what I know for Komodo National Park, and even that number we don't know for an exact number. So that number is around 5,000 in Komodo National Park, and I know that's not an exact number because here's the way that they count those. The way they count those is that the park rangers will go up and they'll go out to different stations around the islands and they'll hang a chunk of meat. So they'll do this every so often. And for a few days, they'll sit out by these chunks of meat that are hanging up in the sky because remember, Komodo dragons, they can smell this from 2.5 miles away. So they just come in huge groups that are just like under that big hanging chunk of meat, and they sit up there with a ticker and they count them. So this is the process that they go through. This is how they count them in the wild, but it's not an exact science. But we do know it's around 5,000, somewhere around 5,000 Komodo dragons. But there are Komodo, remember the great swimmers, so they are found outside of the park. I don't know the number there, but I do know this is the only place in the world that they're found. There are other monitor lizards. So they are in the monitor family. And so there are other large lizards in the world, but the species of Komodo dragon are only found here. Great question coming from my home state, North Carolina. So a big shout out there. And speaking of shout outs, we have another shout out going to Green Bay Area School District up in Wisconsin. Big shout out to you guys as well. So I know we're going to get a lot of questions about, and we already have coming in about, well, what do you do if you get bitten, or how do you protect yourself, which is going to lead us into our next section. But I do want to, we have some questions over on Twitter. We have a second grader, also from North Carolina, wants to know, can Komodo dragons get sunburned from them being out in the sun all day? I do not, I am not aware of animals with scales getting sunburned like you and I do. So I'm going to say probably no, but I don't know for a fact. I'm going to say I think no. I think no there. Okay, and how many eggs do they have in a clutch or in a batch? Coming in from Mrs. Party's classroom. And they have 15 to 30 eggs at a time. They lay their eggs in September, and they incubate them into nests. So they dig and bury their nests into the ground, and they cover them up. And the mom will stick around for a little while to protect those nests, because if other Komodo dragons come by with that Jacobson's organ and they smell eggs in the ground, they will dig them up and eat them. So the mom kind of protects it for a bit. Now they don't, like other reptiles, once the eggs hatch, they go out and they live their whole lives by themselves. They're not, they don't raise their young, but they do protect the nest for a little bit. Great questions coming in there as well. Let's go ahead and address that question of what happens if you are attacked. What do you do when you're on Komodo Island? And I asked that question to some of the guides and park rangers, and these are their answers for us all. Is it common for dragons to attack people?
Yes.
Attacked?
All the time, I need this stick. Yeah. We don't have gun.
Yeah.
But this is gun. Yeah. But it is just for to make stop when the dragon come close to me. Yeah. Better to make stop.
Can you outrun a Komodo dragon?
Yeah. You know, the dragons very, very quickly also. You know, 18 to 20 kilometers per hour. Faster than us. Quickly to the hospital, I think you'll be survive. If not, yeah, I think you'll be die.
So, okay, so if a dragon attacks,
yes,
and you have this,
yes,
what do you do?
This stick why? Yeah, why this stick fork like this? Yeah, this make easier when the dragon come to us. Yeah, and we put on the necks. And we throw away.
Like this?
Yeah, like this. If they more aggressive, the very sensitive, the Komodo dragon, you can hold on the mouth.
On the mouth?
And they go away.
Do you have to do that?
Yes, every time I do that. Yeah. And this stick, just a stick. Sometimes some people say, oh, this is a magic stick. No, this is just a stick. But these sticks, we need the strong wood there. And this stick we take from the name of wood we call buhung. Buhung, the local names, and the international language we call Bali kukun. Bali kukun.
Yeah, it feels strong.
Yeah, very strong.
All right, so Bali kukun is the stick that or the tree that those sticks are made out of. And Mrs. Perry's classroom wanted to know what did they use those sticks for. And so what they're doing, if you had a hard time visualizing that, they use that Y end to stick around their neck. So the dangerous part is their mouth. That's where the venom is located. That's where those sharp little teeth are located. And so if you can keep the mouth away from you, then you're going to stay protected from that Komodo dragon. But if they're really aggressive, then you hit them real hard across the end of their nose, and they're really sensitive right there, and hopefully that will make them stop and go away. So Komodo dragons, they are opportunistic. So if a human is available, they're hungry, they will attack them, but they aren't their primary food source. They aren't going out looking for humans like, hey, I'm gonna find a human today. They're not doing that. They are, if they have the option, they want a deer. That's what's tasty to them. and that's what they're used to eating. Komodo dragons are smart. They have one of the largest brain cavities of any lizard, and they have been trained in zoos for target training. That means what they'll do is they'll put up like a yellow target or a red target. They can see colors really well, and they can kind of learn what's happening with what happens when a red target is showed. Is that feeding time? Is it so forth? So they are smart animals as well. And we're going to go ahead and launch our last survey question of the day. And that is, knowing what you know now, Komodo dragons, they can and have attacked humans. And what do you guys think? Now that you know how to use those sticks, would you guys go hiking around Komodo Island? I want to see what our audience thinks. What do you guys think? Would you go hiking in Komodo National Park? All right, so lots of people are saying yes. Some people are saying no way. Okay, and if you're not logged in yet, our next thing we're going to launch is our survey questions that are going to be worth points. So make sure you get logged in with that PIN number right there. As you're doing that, I'm going to answer a couple more questions that we had sent in, and we will open up for a lightning round of questions afterwards. So if you have time to stick around, definitely stick around, and we'll see if we can answer them. So over in our Q&A app, how long is the longest Komodo dragon? The longest recorded one was 10.3 feet and was 366 pounds. So that's the largest official one that we have on record. Let's see, where do most Komodo dragons live? In Indonesia? Yes, all of them. Are they poisonous? No, they are venomous. And can they swim? Yes, they are great swimmers. And do they have any enemies that they have to worry about? Yes, other Komodo dragons. So Komodo dragons are cannibalistic. They will eat each other. But typically, a 300-pound Komodo dragon is not going to be out trying to eat another 300-pound Komodo dragon. Is going to be smaller Komodo dragons for sure. Okay, and here's a great one. Are they endangered? No, but they are the next step over. So they are vulnerable. They are what? Vulnerable. So they are considered a vulnerable species. So that is when we're talking about conservation of animals in a conservation scale, then that's one step away from endangered. So they're not endangered yet. Hopefully they never will become endangered, but they are considered vulnerable. Okay, we're going to launch our Geo quiz. So make sure that you're logged in right there. And if you have time to stick around and keep asking questions afterwards, I will be on for a little bit afterwards. If you have to go at any point, have a great day. Okay, we are launching our Geo quiz, and the quicker you answer the questions correctly, of course, the more points you will get. So here we go. Good luck, explorers, in 3, 2, 1. Komodo dragons are the largest what in the world? They are the largest red dinosaur, blue lizard, yellow dragon, or green reptile. Okay, they are the largest lizard, blue, in the world. If you answer blue, you are correct. All right, right out the gates, Hilo Shark is in the lead.
Okay, please turn on.
All right, next, Komodo dragon are listed as a vulnerable species. Is that red true or blue false? All right, that is red true, as we just learned. Great job, Hero Shark, followed by Lucky Octopus. Komodo National Park is found in what country? Is it red Australia, blue Indonesia, yellow Cambodia, or green Thailand? All right, blue Indonesia. Great job, Hero Shark. Still in the lead, guys. Komodo dragons have been known to eat humans. Is that red true or blue false? All right, that is true. And last question, make it count, guys. Is Hero Shark gonna win? Where do the young live? Once they hatch, the young live in red caves, blue trees, yellow the water, or green on the ground. All right, it is in trees. And today's winner is dun 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 dun.
Back here.
Hero Shark. So congratulations to Hero Shark for winning today's postcard, which I'll send to you if your teacher sends me your school address. And you can only do that in one place and one place only. And that's over at learnaroundtheworld.com/prize at the bottom of your screen. learnaroundtheworld.com/prize. Send me your school address there and I'll get that snail mail out to you. For everyone else, if you have to head on for the rest of the day, have a fantastic day. Thank you for coming to the other side of the world with us on the Geo Show to learn about the fantastic organism of the Komodo dragon. If you have time to stick around, we're going to start a lightning round right about now. Okay, how wide can they open their mouths? Coming in on a Q&A app. They're not like snakes, so even though they do swallow their prey whole, they can't unhinge their jaw and like swallow something that's a lot larger than what their head is normally. It's going to stay the same size. So they do use those teeth to kind of take a larger animal and get it to smaller chunks. But once they have it in smaller chunks, they are going to swallow it whole. Here's another fun fact about Komodo dragons and swallowing things. They don't swallow water like we do. So when they're drinking water, they kind of scoop up water and then hold their mouth up like that, and the water just runs down the back of their throat. So that's kind of cool there. Let's go over to Shelby, North Carolina. Do you guys have a question for us?
Yeah.
Can I do it?
Go.
I wanted to do it. Oh, God.
I want to know what biome it's considered in Komodo National Park.
Right, it's a tropical Sahara. So what that means is it's a Sahara, and there's a wet and a dry season, but most of it is grass and shrubs, and they don't get enough water year round to support large forests. But they will have in some of the lower areas where the water kind of drains and kind of holds the ground, holds it. There are forests in lower areas, typically like what we saw around where the ranger stations were. Okay, great question there. Over on Twitter, we have a couple questions too. Coming in, how fast can a Komodo dragon run? So they can run up to 20 kilometers per hour. That's about 12 to 13 miles per hour. So those guys can get going pretty fast. Let's see. Also, we have over on Twitter, how far can a Komodo dragon swim at one time? Yeah, I've gotten this question a lot. I cannot find anything about the distance, what the largest, but they island hop. So the distance between islands can be pretty far. So they can swim a good ways, but they're land animals and they're cold-blooded. They're not going to spend a whole lot of time in the water, but they will and do swim. They are great swimmers. So great question there. Let's go back over to Shelby's heading out, and let's see. How many bones do they have? I don't know how many bones they have. Great question there. And other ones we have coming in. Let's see. Don't see any in our Q&A. We'll go back over to Twitter and all right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us on the Geo Show. I'm GeoB. You've been watching the Geo Show. Until next time, it's a great big world out there, so keep exploring. Don't forget to check out Flipgrid at flipgrid.com/GeoShow and check out the answers to the questions we didn't know for the rest of the week. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.